Hi guys, I am coming to you today from our prayer room. This is where we on Thursday nights have our devotional / prophetic worship for an hour, and then the intercessory worship for the next hour, where we start at 6:30 on Thursday nights and go till 8:30. And we actually alternate with the intercession time between praying for Quincy, issues that pertain to this town, and issues pertaining to the church in Quincy, not just our church, but the corporate church here in this town. And then the next week we pray for the persecuted church around the world. So I first off want to encourage you to come and be a part of the prayer room. And I'm going to explain to you a little bit why, based on what I preached on Saturday. Now, unfortunately, the camera didn't get turned on. It was my mistake on Saturday. So I'm going to give you a recap today of what we talked about. And the title of the sermon on Saturday at Fish was Cultivating the Oil of Intimacy. Cultivating the Oil of Intimacy. And we talked about it being in context with the parables that Jesus gave to us in Matthew 24 and 25. Now, if you know anything about Matthew 24, you'll know that this is the passage where Jesus was talking about the end time. His disciples came to him and they asked him, hey, what are the signs of your return? What are we supposed to be looking for? What do we expect? And so Jesus gave them a great outline of what was to come, what things were going to happen in our world before he would come back. And actually, if you read Matthew 24 today, you can look and see these things are happening and they are increasing. And Jesus referred to them as being birth pains. And if you imagine birth pains, you know, those of you that have had babies, you know birth pains start at one point, and they stop a little bit, and they start again. But when it's time, then the birth pains, they get more intense, they hurt more, and they get closer and closer together. And I believe we are in that time where things are getting closer and closer together for this culmination of the birth, Jesus returning and taking possession of this earth. Now, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening in that context, and Jesus gave us a command. He said, we are supposed to watch, therefore. Okay, so watching means to understand what's going on. It means to be knowledgeable, to be wise about the things that are happening. And he said, therefore, watch, therefore. Therefore refers to, he just told us a bunch of information about what was going to be happening. So we need to be looking at those things and saying, okay, is this what Jesus prophesied? And I believe it is. It's obvious. If you look at all the things that Jesus described, those things are happening more intensely in our day and age. If you look at the news reports just from this year, we're into 5 months of this year, and we have had disaster upon disaster happen at a scale and an intensity that is just growing and growing. And so Jesus, he said to watch, therefore, and to pray. And that's our response. By seeing what is going on, we have to then have a response. And it could be fear. Oh no, what's going on? Help me, help me. But that's not the response that Jesus is asking us to have. He's asking us to have a response of partnership in praying with him. And that's why I'm talking to you from the prayer room today. Because the prayer room represents this cultivating of the oil of intimacy. We should be longing for a depth in Jesus. As a follower of Jesus, as a Christian, you should be longing for relationship with Jesus that continues to increase. Just like we talked about the birth pains increasing, the relationship with Jesus needs to be increasing. John the Baptist said it very well. He said, I must decrease and he must increase. And that should be our desire of our heart, is that he would increase in our hearts and our desires would become less and less, and the desire for him would become greater and greater. So after Jesus talked about Matthew 24 and the whole passage talking about what signs to be looking for, what to be watching for, he then gave 3 parables. The first one was in Matthew 24, 45 to 51, and it describes two types of leaders in God's kingdom, in the kingdom that is being described. And the wicked leaders are one of these types of leaders. They have wrong motives and they abuse their authority. And Jesus actually calls them wicked and says that they will end up in the place where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. So obviously these types of leaders aren't even saved. They have not given their life over to Jesus. They are just in the position of authority because they are power hungry and prideful. And so this first parable shows that what if Jesus comes sooner than expected? So that's the point of this first parable, is Jesus' delay is shorter than everybody expected. Now, the second parable is the one that I want to dwell on, so I'm going to skip over that for just a sec, but I'll just say that parable was given, it's the parable of the 10 virgins, was given to show that Jesus' delay is longer than expected. So how do the believers and the leaders interact in their relationship with Jesus and with each other if Jesus delays his coming and it's longer than expected? The third parable is in Matthew 25, verses 14 to 30. And that is the concept of Jesus' delay is harder than expected. You know, we struggle in our Western culture with difficulty. If things aren't going the way we want them to be, we try to change them as quickly as possible. You know, if something is broken, we go out and buy something new. And if it can't be fixed, we throw it away. And we have an attitude of life shouldn't be hard. I should be able to get the things that I need easily. That's why we have fast food, because we want it now. And we want it in our hands, ready to be used. Well, what if the delay of Jesus coming is harder than expected? What will our heart response be? And that's what that parable dwells on. It's the parable of the faithful steward. It's focused on being faithful in each of our assignments in the times it seems small and hard. See, the majority of people have a ministry assignment that is small. We at First Union Congregational Church, our church is small right now. And we are asking God to increase it. But right now, the ministry He has given us is small. And so those responding wrongly to their circumstances, to the dynamics that they faced, they worked with the wrong evaluation and they neglected their assignment. And that's what that parable talks about. But let's take a look at this parable of the 10 virgins, the 5 who were wise and the 5 who were foolish. See, in the end times, the Spirit is going to emphasize 3 different aspects of Jesus, of His personality and His ministry. The first is Him being the bridegroom God. He reveals Himself as such. We understand the picture of marriage. We understand the guy waiting in anticipation for the girl, and then coming together, creating something new together, a oneness, a unity, and they live life together as a new couple, a new family, a togetherness that hadn't been before. And so we understand the picture of marriage, and Jesus reveals Himself as being the bridegroom God. He is the one who is coming again to take His bride in marriage. And now it's not a complete one-for-one picture, because there's no sexual context with this. Okay, that is completely the wrong paradigm to have. It doesn't speak of that. It speaks of the partnership, the relationship that we are to have with Jesus in partnering with Him. He's looking for a bride that is equally yoked with Him. And the only way the church can be equally yoked with Jesus is through His Spirit. So we have to learn to let the Spirit take leadership. We have to learn to let the Spirit come and take control of our lives, to make us into the bride that is in unity with Jesus. And so that's the first thing that the Spirit will emphasize, is Jesus being the bridegroom God. The second thing is He's emphasizing that Jesus is King. Jesus is coming to physically take over this planet. He will bring judgments on the kingdom of the Antichrist. He will bring destruction on the kingdom of the Antichrist. But ultimately, his goal is to restore the planet to what it was in the Garden of Eden. To hand over the rulership of this planet to whom it belongs to. And Jesus is the king who is coming with a deep passion in his heart for his people. A deep passion to see wicked driven off this planet. And the third thing that the Spirit will be emphasizing is that Jesus is judge. He is the one who judges the hearts of mankind. And he, as judge, will be coming and releasing the judgments that we as the church will be praying for him to release. We will be partnering with him. You see, Revelation is the outline of what Jesus is going to do before and after his return, and how he is going to judge the world. And we get to partner with him in that by prayer, by being in unity with the Spirit. In Revelation it says, the Spirit and the bride cry, come. You know, there's a unity there between the Spirit and the bride, the Church of Christ, that is crying out together at the same time, in the same intensity. There's that unity that is being longed for. Okay, so as bridegroom, we encounter Jesus' desire for us. As king, his power, and as judge, his zeal in removing everything that hinders love. Anything that is wicked hinders love, and it must be removed. So Jesus highlights these aspects in his ministry, specifically also in this passage of Matthew 24 and 25.